felt more terrified than I ever initially thought I could feel.
We got a lot of calls. Is it safe to have our children do this? Should we take our kids out of these activities? I mean, what do you tell a parent like that?
There was just a sense of unease, kind of really countywide during that whole summer.
Public response was overwhelming. I would say we got hundreds of leads.
It was like, wow, this is unbelievable.
They're evil. They're just plain evil.
From the pulsating streets of big cities to Main Street, USA, no neighborhood is safe from the unthinkable. These are the stories of innocents lost, of communities changed forever. This is City Confidential. Just 12 miles south of Kansas City, Kansas, sits the city of Leawood, one of the most affluent and secure enclaves in the country. It all dates back to a dream that began in 1913. That was when lawman Oscar G. Lee, who was legendary for taming the Wild West boomtown of Oklahoma City, planted roots in Kansas City. He tried his hand at real estate, buying up a bunch of buildings that were integral in transforming the area. He soon became known as one of the most successful businessmen around. But once a cop, always a cop. And in 1922, the man known for being a quick shot, because he kept a gun inside his vest pocket and would shoot through a hole in the lining when necessary, set his sights on creating a community where pistols were no longer needed. Lee purchased a 15-square-mile parcel of land on the outskirts of Kansas City and created the perfect suburb. He called it Leawood. The city was incorporated in 1948. Upscale developments and distinctive office buildings soon followed, and modern-day Leawood began to take shape. Today, Lee's original 15-square-mile purchase makes up the town, and the 33,000 who live here couldn't be prouder of their bedroom community. And for good reason. The majority of residents own their own homes, and Leawood's got one of the best school districts in the nation. No surprise, considering more than a third of the locals have at least a master's degree.
It is a family-driven community. Being in the Midwest, there are what people always call the Midwest values. Family is first. Work is done to the degree that everybody does an excellent job and gives of themselves, but people work here to live. Their family time and community-driven projects are very important.
Leawood is almost a 21st century Leave It to Beaver. You move into a neighborhood and you have cookies and welcome gift baskets from all the neighbors.
And just as former lawman Oscar Lee envisioned more than a century ago, this place is about as safe as it gets. Violent crime rates are 89% lower than the national average. So in the summer of 2002, residents in this perfect little community were blindsided when their reputation as one of the safest towns in America was shattered. It's 5:30 p.m. on a chilly Tuesday, June 18th, when an emergency call comes in to Leawood PD. Prominent local business owner Roger Kim is calling from a neighborhood community pool.
Leawood 911, what is your emergency?
My daughter's been murdered.
Okay, why do you think that, sir?
Because she's not moving and she's laying in the pool house. She was working here.
Okay, stay on the phone.
And she's got blood all over.
Okay. Stay on the phone. Do not hang up, okay?
Oh, Allie. Oh, honey. Allie, come back. Allie, come to it. Allie.
Paramedics and police immediately arrive on scene. They find Roger Kemp in the pool house with his blood-covered 19-year-old daughter in his arms.
Once the EMTs felt like they had a pulse of some kind, so they loaded her into the ambulance and transported her to the hospital here on State Line Road at St. Joe. It appeared that she had been involved in a significant physical altercation. She had bruises on her face and on her back. She did have a ligature strangulation mark. She didn't have any shorts and her panties were gone, and her bra and her shirt had been pushed up kind of around her neck area.
It was very obvious that there was a struggle. There was blood on the floor where she ended up. Things were knocked over.
The crime scene unit processed it for latent prints. They processed it for trace evidence, hairs, fibers. They took samples of from the blood. They also recovered an antibiotic ointment tube and a cap that was laying on the floor.
The evidence is bagged and rushed to the crime lab for processing. Then cops ask Roger Kemp to help them make sense of what happened here. Roger tells them Allie and her 17-year-old brother Tyler work as attendants at the pool. At 5 o'clock, his son showed up to relieve Allie.
Her car was there. Her college books were there on a table. And he looked all over and couldn't find her, so he called his father. And Roger went over to try and find her. And while looking around the pool, he had looked into the pump room. It was full of old chairs, stuff like that. And he saw a leg sticking out from underneath a tarp for the pools. And he immediately went over, and it was his daughter.
The location of the call being the swimming pool, I thought to myself, well, there had to be people coming and going from the pool all day. How could this have happened and nobody have seen anything? We knew there weren't any cameras at the pool itself, but right across the street to the north was a shopping center, and there is a bank that sits in that shopping center, and there's a couple of other businesses that we knew had surveillance cameras, but there wasn't anything that stood out at that point in time on the cameras that we felt like generated any interest for us.
Detectives talked to everyone around the neighborhood. Quickly learned few people were at the pool due to the unseasonably cold weather. But there are two landscapers who say they've been working there all afternoon.
They said was they had arrived at the pool around noon. They had parked their truck in the parking lot, taken kind of their lunch break in the truck, and while they were sitting there that they saw a truck, had driven through the parking lot, kind of circled through the lot a couple of times, but they didn't really have noticed it stop at any point in time.
The landscapers did get a good look at the driver, but they could identify the truck. A tan 1980s Ford pickup. But before police can run with the lead, they get a call from the hospital. Allie Kemp has died. And safe little Leawood is not so safe anymore. Word that 19-year-old Allie Kemp was brutally attacked at a community pool traveled swiftly through Leawood.
Early evening, I received a call. The weirdest call I've ever had in my life that said, Jennifer, you need to come up to the hospital now. Allie's had an accident. I arrived. There was just one or two other friends sitting on the curb outside the hospital. Just blank faces. I walked up. They said, we've lost Allie. She's gone. She died. And I didn't even hear those words. I thought, no, she had an accident. You know, she's okay. I'll be right back. I'm going to go check on her. No, sit down. She's gone. And nothing else was said. We just sat there silent. And it made no sense. It wasn't real.
Allie Kemp, born and raised in Leawood, was considered one of the town's most promising young women.
I knew that she was a very talented and very hardworking, a very popular girl. She had so many friends. And she was an athlete as well. So she was a real rising star.
When I first met Allie, we were in 6th grade. She was the welcome ambassador. So anytime a new person moved to town or came to school, she was the person that welcomed you. Everyone wanted to be her friend. Everyone loved her.
She had the most beautiful long brown hair and kind eyes. You could just tell from looking at her, she was a genuinely kind person.
The memory I think of most that epitomizes Allie is her laugh. It's just iconic. Like when you say it, everyone can picture it. I can still hear it. It's just the funniest laugh, big belly laugh that makes you laugh and smile no matter what. And she was always the comedian. It was very dry wit, humor, and intelligent. And she just had us all rolling.
Allie had just finished up her first year at Kansas State University and was living at home with her parents and her 2 younger brothers for the summer. She was working part-time at the pool to earn some extra spending money, and her attendant job seemed as safe as it gets. But now Allie is gone. And Leawood cops want to know why.
When I talked with Allie's parents, I asked them if they could give us a list of names that they know she associates with. Did they know of any people that had a grudge against her? Did she talk about anybody in college that she was worried about, or she thought she was being followed?
But the Kemps can't think of anyone who would want to harm their daughter. Police try to build a timeline. They learned that the last person to see Allie alive was her longtime boyfriend, Phil.
They had went together in high school, and then they separated during college. He went to Kansas University, she went to Kansas State University. And then after the year in college, when they returned, they got back together and started dating again.
Phil was also an attendant at the community pool, and earlier that day, he worked the shift right before Allie's.
He had told us that he was at the pool at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when he was relieved by Allie, and that he stayed at the pool till about 2:15, but he had to go to another job. He said that he missed a call from her at about 2:51, I believe. She just left a voicemail because they were going to go out on a date that night.
Cops confirm Phil couldn't have killed Allie because he was seen working across town from 2:30 p.m. on. And with Allie's call coming in at 2:51 p.m., police realized the window of attack was sometime between that call and when her brother Tyler showed up at 5 p.m. to start his shift. And then one of Allie's best friends comes forward and helps whittle down the timeline further. She tells detectives she stopped by the pool around 3:15.
She said she drove in and she honked her horn, and she said she was, in her words, acting obnoxious just to get Allie to come out. And she said Allie didn't come out, but a guy peeked around the corner of the pump house, and she said he was dressed in like blue coveralls. And she thought he was a boss of Allie's. And she thought, oh, I got Allie in trouble because of honking and all this stuff. Allie's friend described the person she saw as a white male, husky, dressed in blue, and carrying a bucket, which made her think that he worked for the pool. And she said he walked by and went to a vehicle and drove off. And I asked her what type of vehicle it was. She said, I really didn't see it.
It was obvious to us the individual that Allie's friends saw when she pulled in that day to see Allie was somebody that couldn't be accounted for, fit into our time frame of when the crime had to have occurred, so we felt like that was quite likely our suspect.
Detectives asked Allie's friend to sit with a police sketch artist to come up with a composite of the mysterious man she saw. 3 hours later, a 30-something, slightly balding, round-faced white male is staring back at them from the page.
We definitely needed to identify who that individual was, and we felt like the truck that the lawn care worker saw was probably our suspect vehicle. So that information was put together and released to the media.
Flyers are posted all over town. No one recognizes the man. But for residents, the composite sketch becomes the elusive face of evil, who boldly struck and killed in this exclusive enclave in the middle of the day.
I felt more terrified than I ever initially thought I could feel. You know, the day before, my entire life, you'd wave to everyone. You'd welcome them in for water if they're out jogging. I mean, it's just absurd how safe it was. And now I was terrified to step foot outside.
The parents were in a panic mode. They were scared to death. We got a lot of calls. Is it safe to have our children do this? Should we take our kids out of these activities? I mean, what do you tell a parent like that?
And when the autopsy report comes in, cops realize the people of Leawood have every reason to worry.
This is a picture of 19-year-old Allie Kemp, a much-loved Kansas State student and Blue Valley North graduate, an unlikely victim of murder.
There was evidence of a struggle, I can tell you that.
Police say Allie fought back against her attacker in this pump room. It's a place where she would check the pool's chemical levels while on the job. It's also the place her dad and brother would find her body.
2 days after Allie Kemp's murder, residents are trying to take in the enormity of the tragedy that's touched down in Leawood, Kansas. And when the autopsy results come in, police get a sobering look at just how violent the attack was.
She had some wounds in the front of her face. We felt that maybe the suspect had hit her head on the concrete floor in the pump room, and that she had some broken fingers, and she had broken fingernails. The injuries to her hands showed that she fought back. She had ligature marks on her neck, and it appeared that she was strangled from behind. They didn't know what it was that the suspect used, but it did leave a very clear and distinct line on her throat.
The coroner wouldn't say whether or not she had been sexually assaulted. We still felt like, based on the way she was found, with her underwear and her shorts missing, and her shirt and bra being pushed up over her or up around her neck, we still felt like the motive of this was sexual assault.
And the crime lab analysis backs up the theory. There was foreign DNA found on Allie and throughout the pool room.
They had found 4 spots, 1 spot on her bra, 1 on her shirt, and the DNA found on her shirt and bra was an unknown male sample mixed with Allie's blood, and then a sample from the cap of the ointment tube and the ointment tube had the same profile on each item, and it was an unknown male. When the unidentified profile was put into CODIS, the national database where all offenders have their DNA profiles put in, there was no match, but the crime lab felt that was a good enough profile that when we got the suspect, we would be able to identify him.
Fortunately, the police composite sketch of the killer and his Ford pickup has been seen by nearly everyone in town.
Public response was overwhelming. I mean, we got leads. I mean, I would say we got hundreds of leads.
We just got flooded with calls from people either saying they knew somebody who had a truck like that, they knew somebody who looked like that. You had to kind of triage the leads as they would come in. You know, you had a pile that needed to be worked right now, a pile that needs to be worked when we can.
What we really need are license numbers, addresses where trucks are parked, names of potential suspects, but things that actually can be followed up.
We developed a database of names of everybody that we contacted, that we talked to, that we interviewed. Every piece of information that we had in the case, we entered in the database to help us at least try to keep a handle on all the information that we're getting coming in.
With all of the leads we received on this case, we had police agencies from both sides of the state line working.
And just 4 days after Allie's murder, Leawood PD gets a call from 40 miles away. The Leavenworth County Sheriff's Department thinks they might have a break in the case.
There was a situation where an individual had an apparent warrant for his arrest. He resembled the composite. He was approached by Leavenworth County officials, and as he was confronted, the first thing he said was, "You're here about the girl murdered at the pool in Leawood, aren't you?" And the officers looked at him and noticed he had a lot of scratches, bloody scratches on his arm. Right then and there, the Leavenworth authorities thought, "Oh my goodness, we have fallen into identifying this suspect." He was taken to Leavenworth County Sheriff's Office, where our detectives sent a team up to interview him.
The guy has a rock-solid alibi. He was at work and seen by several people the day Allie was murdered. And he can explain the cuts on his arms.
The scratches ended up being from a domestic dispute with his wife the day or two prior, so the lead kind of fell apart.
We were very excited. Everybody wanted to run up to Leavenworth, and, then that happens.
A little over a week into the investigation, and the case database is loaded with nothing more than bitter disappointment. Then cops get a call. A tipster says the sketch of the killer is the spitting image of a 27-year-old auto mechanic who lives just 15 miles away from Leawood. A little over a week after Allie Kemp's murder, a man living about 20 minutes from Leawood, Kansas, shows up on police radar. His name, James Strader. His face, chillingly familiar.
Strader was like a dead ringer to the composite. So we sent a team out, and they interviewed Strader. He said, "I know I look like the composite, but it isn't me." He said, "I was working at the time at an auto repair shop in Olathe, Kansas, and I didn't do it."
The detectives talked to his boss. His boss was able to look through his work file records and saw the job that Mr. Strader had done that day and basically vouched for Mr. Strader. It's a small shop. He kind of knows when people are there and when they're not. But James Strader had not left the shop that afternoon on the day of our homicide. So based on the alibi from the boss and the work records, the team had eliminated Mr. Strader as a suspect.
While cops hunt for new leads, Leawood braces for one of the saddest gatherings in the town's history.
We've gathered here this day to thank God for the life of Alexandra Elizabeth Kemp. We feel our hearts aching and breaking. We have shed many tears over the last few days.
Tears are still shed over the murder of this young and vibrant spirit.
Allie's funeral was held at Church of the Resurrection, one of the largest Methodist church in the world. And no way you could fill that. Well, Allie's funeral did.
Today, loved ones turn to God for hope, and they turned to God for the difficult questions.
Where was God on Tuesday afternoon? I believe that God was by Allie's side, angry and grieving at the hurt that was inflicted upon one of his children.
It was absolutely heartbreaking. Yeah, it was really difficult. Sorry.
I had never been to a funeral in my life. We didn't even know what to expect. I remember us girls holding hands, quietly saying prayers to Allie, looking down at her flower-covered, casket. There wasn't a dry eye.
As tears rained down on Leawood, police assigned a detective to do nothing but wade through hundreds of DMV records, hoping to get a bead on the killer through his tan truck.
He pulled all the DMV records from both Missouri and Kansas of all 1984 pickups and was running all those down to look at those and talk to those people. But, you know, as you got into those leads, there was always something about them that they would fall apart fairly quickly.
As the summer heats up and the case cools down, it seems the newest and most unwelcome neighbors in Leawood are frustration and fear.
There were a lot of pools, subdivision pools, that never reopened that summer simply because of that. There was just a sense of unease, you know, kind of really countywide during that whole summer. People were really concerned for all the young girls out there, because again, if somebody that would be brazen enough to have committed this crime in a public area in the middle of the day, that individual could lash out or strike again at any point in time.
Summer turns to fall, and detectives are no closer to identifying the killer. The Kemp family is devastated, but Allie's dad, Roger, decides to channel his grief into action. He focuses on how his daughter's attack can help save other lives.
Allie was a strong girl, and I know that she fought hard at the end of her life. But he felt if she had had a few more ideas of how to defend herself, it might not have ended the way it did.
I remember him saying, we're going to have a self-defense class. We're going to teach every woman, girl, mother, daughter in America what to do so this doesn't happen to anyone else's kid.
The result? Take Defense, the Allie Kemp Educational Foundation.
When I took the class myself the first time, it is mind-blowing, the stuff you learn. I thought it would be, you know, you hit this way, or do you spray them with pepper spray? No, it was the psychology behind it. Like how unaware every single one of us were. But we lived in this bubble. You didn't have to be aware because everyone looked out for you. But the game had changed.
With the self-defense classes taking off, Roger turns back to the unsolved murder of his daughter. He knows all it will take to crack this case is getting the attention of the right person.
Roger came to us and asked what we thought of him putting an ad in the USA Today. A half-page ad with the composite, the truck, the crime. Do you think that would help? We said, anything can help.
So the ad that we put together, I wanted to make it jump out to the readers. So in bold type, we had, "Do you know who killed me?" And then we had a photograph of Allie, this beautiful young lady. And we had a description of the suspect, a composite of the suspect, and all the details we could.
Well, we think it's very important to get the national exposure because we don't know if this predator's 3 blocks away or he's in New York City or in California. And we just need to get it out there because we are going to catch him.
Roger says, "What else can we do?" And he says, what about a billboard? And Roger met with a billboard company who was like everybody else in Kansas City. We'd like to help.
They ended up giving him like 2 or 3 billboards throughout the metro area. And they put him at very busy locations so it would get a lot of exposure.
He got with Yellow Freight, which is a trucking company here in the Kansas City area. They were able to put pictures of the composite in the truck on the back of their truck so that as they drove around the country, the information, the face, and the truck information would be spread throughout the country.
A flood of new tips come in from all over the country, and Leawood police spend months chasing them all down. Nothing pans out. Then, in February of 2003, investigators hear about a menacing predator wanted for committing several violent crimes against women in the greater Kansas City area. And when police get a look at him, they realize this isn't the first time they've seen his face. Eight months after Allie Kemp's murder, Leawood police are staring back at a familiar face. James Strader, the suspect they cleared months ago. Seems he's been getting into some serious trouble since they last talked to him.
He was wanted for kidnapping and raping a girl from Hutchinson, Kansas, and he went and kidnapped another girl that I believe was his ex-girlfriend and raped her, and then he left and went down to southern Missouri, where he also sexually molested or raped a 14-year-old.
He was a bulky 5'5" individual, rounded face, short hair. I mean, every aspect of this individual matched the same description as our suspect. So now he's back on our radar.
But the earlier investigation showed Strader, a small-town mechanic, had a solid alibi during the time of Allie's murder.
I went back out to the auto repair place and talked to the boss myself. I mean, he had the stuff there that showed that he was there.
To rule him out once and for all, cops need his DNA. They luck out when Strader gets stopped on a traffic violation in Utah.
The sheriff's office invited me to go out with their detective, and we did get his DNA, and it was confirmed a second time. He was not the killer. I'm not saying he's not a criminal, but he wasn't the criminal that killed Allie.
For the next few months, investigators struggled to get traction in the case. Allie Kemp's killer remains a mystery. Then, on the 1-year anniversary of her murder, the phone at the station rings. An anonymous tipster says he recognizes the man in the composite sketch. And it's like founding lawman Oscar Lee has just shined down on the police department.
He said, hey, you guys should take a look at a guy named D.L. Hoover. Goes by Ben. Gave us his home address in Kansas City, Kansas. Said he was living there with his girlfriend. Gave us the girlfriend's name. And says that, his dad has an older Ford truck that he drives sometimes. He either ran his own pool company or worked with a pool cleaning company. I go out to try to interview him at his house. He's close to the composite. In talking to him that day, when you sit down across from somebody and you're investigating a homicide and they've been called in as a possible suspect, most people become somewhat nervous in that particular situation. But they seemed fairly casual about it. Didn't seem like it was a big concern for him. I asked if he could recall what he would have been doing on the day of the homicide. He said, no, he really wouldn't have any way to remember what he was doing that day. I said, okay, well, the only way, because you don't know where you were that day, to eliminate you is going to be through DNA. He says, what I probably would want to do first is talk to an attorney. And he gave me his attorney's name and phone number. And I said, either you or your attorney need to get back in touch with me within the next day or two and let me know what you want to do.
Days pass. Finally, Hoover's lawyer calls.
The attorney says to me, well, he never paid me. He's taken off. He went to Florida. So do whatever you want to do.
Detectives confirm Hoover's rental home is empty and ask his landlord for any forwarding information.
And he said, he told me he was going to Vegas. So we had the attorney telling us Florida, we had the landlord telling us Vegas, but bottom line, Mr. Hoover had disappeared on us.
So now we got a guy that looks like the composite, who refuses to cooperate, won't provide his DNA, and skip town. Whoa, this is a good suspect. Priority list number 1.
We tried everything we could to locate this guy. Las Vegas PD tried to find him anywhere in Nevada or in Las Vegas, nothing. The same in Florida. We couldn't find him anywhere.
Over the course of the next several months, we would randomly run him through the computer system, thinking that, okay, well, he's going to reestablish himself somewhere. And we're never able to find him in any of the 50 states.
17 months pass. There's still no sign of Teddy Hoover. That's when police get creative.
We came up with the idea of contacting postal inspectors. We gave them the name of Ted Hoover and also his girlfriend's name to see if they had any records of someone with those names getting mail.
They do. More than 2 years after Allie Kemp's murder, Leawood detectives learned that the girlfriend of their number one suspect, Teddy Hoover, is now living in Connecticut. They asked the state police to do some groundwork.
They had checked with the mail carrier, and she was getting mail there. And there was another guy getting mail there, but his name was not Ted Hoover. It was Ben Appleby.
Detectives look into Benjamin Appleby. Turns out, he has outstanding arrest warrants dating back to the 1990s. He's wanted on 3 misdemeanor counts for lewd and lascivious conduct. According to the record, Appleby liked to flash high school girls, and when police went after him, just like Teddy Hoover, he up and disappeared. Looks like Benjamin Appleby and Teddy Hoover have a lot in common.
We met with the detectives from the Connecticut State Police, and we kind of came up with the decision or the plan that they would arrest him on their misdemeanor warrants.
Connecticut police went to the door and knocked on it. Benjamin Appleby answered the door. They asked him if he was Benjamin Appleby. He said he was. He was placed in handcuffs and taken to the Connecticut State Police barracks.
Leawood cops are there waiting. And sure enough, Benjamin Appleby, a.k.a. Teddy Hoover, walks in the door.
We sit down and he says, I made a mistake. I told you I was never at that pool, but he said I was.
Like I told you before, I went in there to the pool with the intentions of looking at the pool to get to business. I'd never seen her before. Went in the pump room. Allie was in the pump room. And I hit on her. Some small talk. I don't remember exactly what I said. And just didn't, wasn't interested in anything I had to say. And I was blocking the doorway. I think she felt uncomfortable, obviously, with me standing there. And I don't know what to. I tried to hit on her. I touched her. Not hard, nothing. Either on the shoulder or the hip or something. She pushed me back, and she punched me. Okay, where did she punch? Right around here. Then I hit her a few times, and we fell down to the floor. I lost it. I took her clothes off with the intention of trying to have sex with her. And I tried to have sex with her and I couldn't fucking do it. And I panicked. You said she was strangled. I know I strangled her. I don't know what I strangled her with. And I don't know why I fucking did it.
He cried. He said he was so sorry he did this, but those were crocodile tears. He was crying because he got caught, in my opinion.
Benjamin Appleby is arrested on the spot for the murder of Allie Kemp.
I get this phone call. It's Scott Hansen. What's going on? We got him. I contacted the chief, Sid Mitchell. Both got in the car, and we headed to Roger's house. The minute we pulled up to the house to ring the doorbell, the door opened. Roger comes out and he says, "You've got him."
Allie's murder turned her friend's world upside down. Today they sat quietly, listening to word of the suspect's arrest.
I'm just so thankful that they have found him for the family, for the Kemps. I know this has been a long journey for them. It was the first time in 2 years that it was okay to smile and cheer and celebrate. It was this, like, the handcuffs were released and everyone was just excited. We got him, yay.
I just felt like the community could take a deep breath, that there was an exhale that happened because finally, after all that length time this murder had been brought to justice.
On December 5th, 2006, Benjamin Appleby is convicted of capital murder and attempted rape. He is sentenced to life in prison with a chance of parole after 50 years.
Benjamin Appleby was a monster. He was the worst of humanity, but, he's gone. We'll never do this again. And, we don't need to think about him ever again.
But for the little town built on law and order, Allie's story is remembered as a cautionary tale that bad things can happen even in Leawood, Kansas.
I think it made us a little more realistic. We need to protect everyone we can as well as we can, and never wait till tomorrow to tell someone you love them.